So this is now episode 3 of the Tiny Tavern podcast. I'm here in Discord with Camomilk, a very famous player who will talk about card games and the number 42. How are you doing, Camomilk?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on.
It's my pleasure, buddy. I wanted to ask you and start the conversation with your experience in card games. Like, where did you start?
Oh, yeah. So my background, I started with Magic the Gathering. Uh, just got introduced to it by a group of friends. They had invited me over and we did opened a box of cards and did a sealed event and had a lot of fun with that. I started playing with some groups at work. Didn't do a lot of their online client. They had a pretty clunky online client, so I would watch some drafts on YouTube and stuff and learn the game that way and go to the gaming store sometimes. But then eventually one of the streamers I was watching was playing some Eternal, and I saw that and thought it looked pretty cool. Figured I'd give it a shot, and I got hooked on it. I really liked the interface and the gameplay, so been playing Eternal for a few years now. I participated in a few of the community tournaments back when the ETS was running them. I remember doing pretty well with Huru mid-range deck at one point, but then I was unable. I think I had qualified for the top 8, but I was unable to actually participate because of other commitments. And then a little later than that, there was a community tournament put on by the Great Parliament, and I played in a couple of rounds of that. I actually played an even Shimmer Pack deck in one round and did well enough to qualify for their invitational, where I think I made it to the top 4 with an FJS deck. That was last year sometime. Apart from that, I've done the official tournament scene, like participating in the ECQ qualifiers and stuff. But it was only recently, like the first season, I don't think I made the top 64 in any of them. But this season, I've managed to make the top 64 in a couple.
How about that Elysian deck that you built for the last ECQ?
The Elysian deck, it's a deck, I've actually been playing it for a while. So there's a bit of a history there. I mentioned I brought in even Elysian deck to a community tournament last year, but that was before the new set came out. So it was before Pride Leader or Spell Shaper were
Uh huh.
available.
Right.
So that deck was okay, and some other streamers I saw had played that deck. Like I remember disagreeing with Sunnyvale about some of the card choices because he really liked Nash when that card came out, but I preferred Scouting Party because the Four Yetis give you a lot of bodies on board, but the big Nash, I ended up in my final list that I did well with in the most recent tournament. I ended up going with Nash because it did really help the deck against some of its weaknesses. Uh, but yeah, more recently, they updated the expedition format with the new set, and so I was really focused on expedition for quite a while. And then I started playing some Throne again, and I just couldn't figure out a deck that I liked. I tried some of this Firetime Justice and like FJS, and I was just having really mediocre results with all these decks. And so I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna build even Shimmer Pack because I remember liking that deck back in the day. I'm gonna see how it does in one of these qualifying runs, and I ran with it and did really well. It's like, oh hey, I like this deck, and then I played it on ladder some in December, and it took me to a really high ranking in the December Throne ladder. I actually got top 20 that month because I just played even Shimmer Pack all through Diamond and got placed into like rank 13 or something when I entered Masters.
Impressive.
So yeah, so the deck was having good results for me, and I actually took it to the December Throne ECQ tournament, uh, and that was very similar to the list that I played in the was it the January tournament? Yeah, the January
Yeah.
Invitational tournament. had a very similar list. I was only a few cards off, and I actually got off to a really good start. I thought I was going to make the top 64 because I was at 17 and 8. And then I lost two in a row. So I was at 17 and 10, and I knew that I still had a chance if I could just win my last game. And guess who I faced off in my last game? It was this guy called Bardeen,
Oh my god.
who crushed me with your Xenon mid-range deck.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh
That was a
man.
good game. I was
Oh
I was
man.
disappointed.
Oh, I feel like such a dick right now. Oh, cause like no, the worst part is I got in like super. I was like 24-4, so I was in.
Oh.
Like I was just winning to win at this point because I wanted a better placement. So like wow, man, dude.
No
I
hard feelings.
oh I I'm genuinely sorry for that. Really. I I
It's
I
okay.
totally didn't expect to hear my name. I expected like Yodabite, Kalibovich. I expected some like big players that Bardeen. I'm like, wow, fuck. Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, let's.
So didn't make it in that month. But turns out in the next month, I think that the meta shifted a bit where there are some decks that are harder matchup for the even Shimmer Pack deck. Like Xenon Midrange, for example, I think is actually a pretty tough matchup for it. But like in the next month in January, people weren't really playing Xenon Midrange anymore, and there was a lot less Pride Leader in the meta. That can be a problematic card because it can take out the obelisk. And so I ended up having a very favorable bracket when I got into the tournament in January. I faced several like fire-based aggro decks, and I think with Pride Leader in the deck, you have a very favorable matchup against things like Stone Scar. And I faced Stone Scar twice in my bracket, so and I just had a good run in the qualifier in the Invitational in January, and made it all the way to second place. So I was super stoked about that, super pumped to do that well in the tournament, and had a lot of fun.
What do you think about the final? What went wrong?
A few things went wrong there. One, I think that matchup is actually a little favored for Big Combre. They're a deck that they go big fast. They ramp into these big units, and then they have the Sword of Unity. And typically with Shimmer Pack, your way to come back against these boards full of big units is eventually you draw a Shimmer Pack and you just transform all their units and make them small. But when they can give all their big units Aegis, that's a pretty tough plan for you to deal with. Um, and on top of that, I didn't draw. I drew some of my worst cards in the matchup. I think both games I played, I drew 3 Pride Leaders, which is a great card in a lot of matchups, but in that matchup, it's not so great. And then I think I think I made a few like minor misplays, not major mistakes, but I could have played a little tighter. Like there was a game where I put a Spell Sheeper onto a Pride Leader, I think, and they immediately the next turn played a Sandstorm Titan that could just block it. And if I had maybe played it on a flyer, I could have been able to get in some more hits and drawn some more cards. So I think those are some of the factors that went into losing the finals. It's a bad matchup. I didn't play quite as sharp as I needed to, and I didn't get quite the draws that I needed to. I'm still really happy with the result, though. I mean, the second place
Yeah, second place is
was
really
really sweet.
impressive. Yeah, yeah. For the first time you played Even Elysian, did you see someone else play it, or did you have the idea all on your own? Hey, why don't I play this card that everyone plays in Reanimator, but I play it in these two colors instead? You know, good.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, this deck was really inspired by two previous decks. Back in set 1, Shimmer Pack was a deck. Just the whole strategy of playing dorky little dudes that replace themselves. Temple Scribe, 1/1 it draws a card. Talir's Favor, a 0/2 that draws a time sigil. And just flood the boards with these little guys. If they spend their removal to kill them, great, you still got a card out of it, so that's card advantage for you. And eventually, if you can keep these units sticking on board, you can buff them up with an Obelisk or a Shimmer Pack and get a huge board and take over the game that way. So that was set one, way back in the day, was a pretty powerful deck. More recently, when they introduced the Expedition format, one of the decks that did really well in the first Expedition format was this mono time even-handed Golem deck. And it played even-handed Golem, it played Sand Warrior, the 0 cost 3/3 for 3-time influence, and used that to not fall too far behind on tempo, because in the even-handed deck your card costs can get really awkward and you miss these. You don't have play turn one, so you need some way to catch up against aggressive decks. And that deck did really well. And when I saw that deck, I thought, man, this deck seems like it could go and fit with this Shimmer Pack shell. As far as little dorky units that replace themselves go, what if your little unit drew 2 cards instead of just 1 card? And that's what even-handed Golem does. So I really wanted to try this, adapting this kind of mono-time even-handed Golem deck into a shell that could play Shimmer Pack alongside of it. And I thought it worked pretty well. At the time, that was before Sodi's Spell Shaper came out. And once Sodi's Spell Shaper came out, that gave enough extra card draw that you could keep the deck going pretty consistently, even if you weren't able to draw the even-handed Golem to start with.
Do you feel like a lot of the even-handed Elysian games rely on drawing the even-handed golem, or what is your win rate like when you do draw the golem versus when you do not draw the golem?
That's a good question, and I don't have stat tracking to answer that question. I haven't recorded my games closely enough to say with any exactness. Even-handed Golem does seem like the best card in the deck. If you have an opening hand with even-handed Golem and you can play it, then you're probably just going to keep that hand. That's a great hand. But the deck definitely can win games without even-handed Golem. It has several other sources of card draw, like Temple Scribe draws a card. Teacher of Humility, if it connects, can draw you a card. And then, of course, there's Sodi's Spell Shaper, and that if you can manage to keep connecting with that, you'll just keep drawing cards. So even-handed Golem is the best card in the deck. It's the one you want to draw, but the deck can win without it. And I think that's one reason why I like this even-handed deck a lot, is it doesn't just rely on drawing the Golem.
Is it still good in the meta? What are you playing right now?
I've been doing a lot of just kind of experimenting with different things since the new set came out. And I've been experimenting in Expedition a lot. So I haven't actually played a lot of the even-handed Elysian deck since the new set came out. But I know some other people have been having some success with it. One new card that's people have been experimenting with in the deck is this, I forget the name of it, but it's a 4-cost 3/2 with Ambush and Corrupted, and on summon it plays a random 2-cost card from your deck, or a random card that costs 2 or less. And so people like it in the even-handed deck because you're not playing cards like Seek Power that would just be really bad hits, and you are playing even-handed Golem, and if you hit that, it's great. So that sounds like it has some promise for the deck. And I have seen a few different variants that people have done. My deck was not running Sandstorm Titan or Cicalis, and people have definitely been trying those out. Those are both reasonable inclusions, I think. Although I do really like my power base. I spent a lot of time in December tweaking my power base to try to make it able to take advantage of these off turns, because in the even-handed deck, like on turn 3, you only have plays that cost 2 or 4. So either you can have some depleted power, like a crest that scouts for you, or an amber coin that might give you an extra unit for free, or else if you're able to draw the little mana ramp dude that gives it extra power, that can sometimes allow you to play 2 cards on turn 3, and that's really nice. But at the same time, it's important to have undepleted power on turn 2. When I was testing the deck, I found that, well, two of the ways that the deck can lose, two of the things it was weak to, were flying strategies, and so I put Nash in the deck, and that gave a way to come back against flying strategies, and then just not deploying stuff fast enough and soon enough, like finding depleted power on turn 2, so you can't play anything on turn 2, and then an aggressive deck just runs you over. And so I ended up cutting a lot of the power that were usually depleted on turn 2, specifically the seats and the banners. I didn't run that many sigils in the deck, so the seats were usually depleted on turn 2, and the banners were always depleted because you don't ever have a unit in turn 1. So I cut some of those and put in some diplomatic seals, always undepleted on turn 2, and they give you the influence on turn 2. And I really liked the diplomatic seals in the deck. It made it more consistent in opening hands.
Where do you see Eternal going? Because I hate saying this, but I am having more fun playing Runeterra right now. Like, I mean, I'm definitely
Oh
gonna
yeah.
play in the ECQ, definitely, but I will never like LAN, and just because they create all these non-games where either you or your opponent doesn't have lands or has too many lands because just the game decided so, right?
Hmm.
And I hate that feeling. I hate that feeling of not being able to do anything because you got flooded, or you started with 3 sigils but it's been 15 cards and you haven't seen a 4th one. Meanwhile, you know. Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah, I get you there. There's definitely some downsides to just relying on the randomness. But I think there are some upsides as well. Like, it allows new players to sometimes steal a win from a more experienced player, right? Just because of luck of the draw, and I think that helps it um, be accessible to a wide audience in terms of skill level. So there are some ups and downs there.
it's a very beautiful way of looking at it, actually. In the last episode, I was discussing how I like, not just like, I love the RNG in poker because it creates the illusion that a bad player can win. But in there, it's the
Mm.
illusion. See, that's what I love about it. In poker,
Oh yeah,
it's just you will never win. If you're the worst player out of 2 players, you will never beat the better player. Just because, like, the game is not an RNG game. It's all about so many things, but almost none of them are RNG. So, but there's the illusion that the RNG will help you to win because you get the aces, man. You know.
yeah. Well, if you just play one hand of poker, it's a different story.
Yes, of course.
But if you're playing many games of poker, then for sure like the better players are going to win. And I think Eternal, you could say something similar about, where like one game of Eternal is going to be oftentimes decided by the luck of the draw. But over time, there's enough games where the skill and the decision making comes into play that the better players are generally going to uh, go to the top. Of course, in these tournaments, we have a best of 3 format, so
What
at
I was
any
about
time
to
you
point
could,
out.
yeah, yeah.
So many of
Sometimes you can just
those.
get unlucky 2 games in a row, and it's
Yeah. So many of those go
Pretty tough.
2-1. You know, like you win your first game, and then you get flooded one game, and then you get screwed one game, and you're like, "What did I do to
Yeah.
deserve this? What? Who did I insult in high school? Like, did I bully someone?"
It definitely sucks to just lose to the luck of the draw, the flood or the screw there, but
Uh,
I still enjoy the game. I like I think I still like having the power cards in your deck because of some of the things it does for you, like the draft format. The draft format allowing you to draft from 5 different colors and like figure out which colors are open. I feel like it's really hard to do that if you don't have some of these restrictions of putting the right color of cards in your deck, and that's part of the skill in draft is not being too greedy with the influence and the colors that you're picking.
I'm very happy that you mentioned draft because how do you feel about this current draft that we have going on right now?
So I haven't gotten a whole lot of time with the draft yet. I think I've done 2 drafts with the new set so far. So just take any of my comments with a grain of salt because I don't have that much experience with the new draft set. But I am enjoying it so far. It seems like a lot more powerful set than the previous ones. I'd say Echoes of Eternity just feels more powerful than Flames of Zolta, and it seems like you get to do a lot of powerful things. I haven't seen a lot of games just be ran over by an aggressive low to the ground aggro deck. Um, Rather, you're getting like stranger synergies or some big payoff cards, and it seems like a very powerful set.
I wasn't a huge fan, to be honest. I feel like,
Really?
yeah, I feel like it's very
I
RNG.
w- that could be. I will say that my games so far have felt a little slow at times. Like, be prepared for a longer game if you're going in for draft.
Feels a lot like you're slinging mud at each other. Both the drafts that I played, it just we both ran out of cards. Everything, all the cards that we played were like such low value. Like it felt it.
Speaking of running out of cards, I played a draft game earlier today where my opponent drew their entire deck and just managed to kill me when they drew their last card and had 0 cards left.
Wow, wow. How many cards did you?
I think I had 9 cards left, something like that. They had drawn a lot more than me.
Had some draw engines, eh?
Yeah,
That's
they
a
had a Nahid's Distillation to draw 3 cards, and I think they might have um, drawn that spell back from their void and played it again.
I want to go play it, but I definitely want to try your. Like, do you think Growth of Stranger can get in it?
That's an interesting card. Gordov Stanger certainly looks powerful. Uh, in my build of the Even Shimmer Pack deck, I only had 2 Shimmer Packs in the decks, and those were the only 2 8 drops. So with Grodov Stranger ramping you, um, I guess the question is, what is it ramping you to? What are you going to spend that extra power on? And maybe you can play more cards from your hand and stuff. And if it survives and attacks, of course, it draws you cards. That seems great. So there might be something there. Uh, there is that other stranger, the 2/3 time stranger that reduces the cost of the top card of your deck when a stranger attacks.
Sure.
And I guess if you're going with a stranger package, that might be worth a look too, because it would help a lot with the tempo, which an even deck needs, I think, since you have this sort of awkward curve without any odd costed cards. But if you can make your cards cost 2 less, if you can get in there and attack, then
Feel like
it seems pretty
this
nice.
this stranger is only playable in a full-on stranger comp. Otherwise,
That could be.
a 2/3 for 2 is not good enough for constructed. It's good enough in draft, but definitely not good enough for constructed. That's what was that shadow 2/3 that gets bigger when it hits you? Black.
Black Hole War Leader.
There we go. So the Black Hole War Leader is only successful because it comes in Stone Scar, which can clear in front of it to allow it to hit, right? And once it hits,
Yeah.
it also buffs itself. So you only really need to allow it to hit once, and it's already worth a 2-drop. But a 2-drop that's only a 2/3, like you need that. Again, like. You need that 3/3 stranger that buffs all your strangers for 1/1 on turn 3. Well, he's a 2/2
Yeah.
stranger, but he buffs himself as well.
Yeah.
And then it makes it.
That makes a lot of
playable.
sense.
Well, that's what I think. I don't know. I'm just spitballing, really. I haven't really given it much. Well, I gave this some thought. I saw that 2/3 and I was like, is this playable outside of a stranger build? My first, likely not. Loses fights with most other 2-drops that people would
That
play.
may be true. I guess I have been playing it in a stranger build in Expedition, but that's a totally different environment than the Throne, Even Elysian environment.
You play Expedition right now?
Yeah, right now I have been playing more Expedition than Throne. I've been experimenting with the new Nauki card, the Fire Time Justice 5-drop with Pledge and Endurance Charge Exalted.
How come are you resigned from the Throne ECQ and you just want to focus on winning the next one? Or are you so confident that you're gonna do so freaking well? You're like, man, I don't even need to practice for this. I'm just gonna go there and stomp everybody.
I was actually considering taking a break this month and sitting out the current ECQ. Just because there was a lot of them last month, and I figure I'll focus on the future ones and take a break this month. I have some other things going on this month.
I did that
But also
once.
just say what?
I did that once, and I have to say, I didn't regret it, but I both rued and lamented it.
Okay.
No, I mean, I wasn't really. As soon as I didn't go in, and it was like already too late to get in for play the 28 games, I was like, man, I should have went in. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're sure, if you're absolutely sure you don't want to play, then first don't play. But my experience was, I was like, man, I was also like, if it was the one right after I got to the top 4. I was like, oh, I made it top 4. I can take a break. I don't need to play next month.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, fuck. Should have totally played. Ooh, gotta edit that F-bomb right there. Yeah. Or I might leave it. We'll see how it feels. Little swear I never hurt anybody. But what um what are your thoughts on the expansion we have right
I think it's added a lot of power into the format. There's a lot of really powerful new cards to figure out, and so there's just a lot of brewing going on right now. You mentioned like Grodov's Stranger. That seems like a really powerful card. It's gonna see some play. Expedition in particular feels a lot more powerful. Like the decks that were the top decks in the previous Expedition format just won't cut it anymore. I think the power level has gone up quite a bit.
Very interesting. What do you think will happen? Everyone's gonna play 3-color decks with all the new busted 3-color, let's call them legendaries, which is what they are.
hmm I think there will be a lot of 3-color decks. I think the Firetime Justice has a lot of powerful synergies, and Firetime Shadow also has some really powerful things, like, and both of those I think can do some powerful things with strangers, especially in Expedition. I think there's going to be some real stranger decks that are going to be interesting when you play the mirror match.
That's what I was gonna ask you. What do you think of Stranger Mirror Match? That is that reliant on skill, or is it gonna be like Hearthstone, where you had two pirate players facing, and pretty much the player with the better draw would always win, regardless of skill level? It was, if I'm the pirate player that plays a one drop and you're the pirate player that doesn't, I will always beat you. That there is no
Hmm.
like there's zero challenge. There's nothing you can, no amount of skill on your part now can win the game because you missed that one drop.
Yeah. And I think that going first is really important in the stranger mirror matches as well, because a lot of these new strangers have an effect whenever anyone's stranger attacks. So if the first player drops a stranger and the second player drops a stranger that helps the first player stranger, just being able to go first is going to be pretty important. So I think it's important to have early removal, uh, to prevent those early attack triggers if you're on the draw.
Very good point. Cool. Now I'm very excited to play Strangers. Keeps changing. I gotta play Allegiance, Draft, and Strangers now. Although I really like tribal deck. So Strangers definitely
Mm.
sounds like something I really enjoy playing. Huh. Runeterra. You play Runeterra now?
I have not played Runeterra. I've heard a few good things about it, but I've just been focusing on Eternal for now. Do you think I should check it out?
I can sing praises for that game till tomorrow. It's so
Oh,
good. Well, no, honestly. So I will be the first person to tell you that Riot is not a great company. But and I'm not their fan at all, and I don't play League, and I don't care for it. And but and I looked for any reason to not like Runeterra and not want to play it and just play Eternal and whatever else I want to play. But Runeterra is just brilliant in every freaking way. It's a card game that solves all of the digital card game issues and also creates new things that you're like, oh, I didn't even know you can make this. And it makes
wow,
the
that's
gameplay so much better. So, have you heard about spell mana?
no, I haven't.
So, spell mana works like this: you get 3 mana that's called spell mana. It sits on the side of the rest of your mana, and you get mana like in Hearthstone, one every turn. When you don't use the mana that you're given, at the end of the turn, it goes into the spell mana slot, which stays there forever, or until you cast a spell. And it can go up to 3. That mechanic
Okay.
gives control players the chance and the ability to come back against a perfect hand from an aggro player. Just because you can, like, basically not playing a unit on turn 1 and turn 2 isn't bad for you necessarily, because now you can play a spell, whereas your opponent didn't make any spell mana, so they can't play any spell.
Oh,
It,
yeah, interesting.
it makes not having to curve out. Like, you don't need to play something every turn. It's not. It's not going to be better 100% of the time. And I think that's a brilliant thing. And another thing, and I talk about this on every podcast, but all your units have haste or charge or whatever you want to call it, right? So
Yeah.
I think in every card game, this is always the mechanic that everyone has the most fun. Everyone wants to play haste units, loves to play haste units. Like, take any unit, if you give it haste, it's way more fun to play it, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's true.
So what they went like, well, why make a haste keyword when we can just give haste to all the units? Because it also, again, I talk about this on every podcast, doesn't make sense. Like the summoning sickness thing, it's only a thing because it makes the game easier to balance around. That's why it's a thing. Well, they were like, well, we don't need this. We absolutely don't need summoning sickness. All the units haste, and we're gonna fix that by having Gwen's turn structure, which is also the so. This is the other thing I say every podcast is they've taken every good thing out of every card game out there, and then made up some things of their own to make it all even better. So the most fun thing in Gwent is the way that the turns work. The fact that you never wait for your opponent to finish his turn for 2 minutes. You just play a card, and they play a card, and you play a card. They play a card, and this is the way that the game works. So beautiful. But then Gwent has an issue of being a math problem. If you play Gwent for long enough, every game becomes the same. Because the games are incredibly consistent. You always draw your entire deck before the game is over, pretty much. And you know exactly what your opponent is playing and what they have in their deck. Which, as soon as the game starts and you see what hero they're playing, you know what the game will play out like. Like, you know the exact, because you've played that game before. And it makes it feel incredibly solved. And it's always like you're doing a little math problem. And it's always the same math problem. So, none of this in Runeterra.
Yeah.
Just the cool turn structure. I was, well, in the first episode we were talking to Gozo about it. He also loves the game right now. I mean, obviously it can go wrong, but knowing Riot, most likely it won't. They might be anything, but they make great games.
Okay.
And most likely the game will become an esport, or at least I hope so, which means there's going to be an absurdly huge tournament scene. And the other thing, again, that I talk about on every podcast, it's incredibly free to play. You would think that Riot is paying me to say these things. So, yeah, it's silly free to play because they want to incentivize people to quit their other card games and come play their card game. And the way that they make money is by selling you cosmetics. But the cosmetics are also very fairly priced, rather than as other card games would do it, price them at 35 and $50 for a skin. It's you have a little pet that's animated at the side of your screen. Those cost $6, and you have your whole board, and there's already 8 boards in beta. You can pick from 8 boards. And they're all super different, and they all have different animations on them, and they cost $10 each. So, and this is how they want to make money. They want to make money through skins, whereas making a collection is crazy easy. Just, you know, it's not even funny how easy it is. So, yeah, definitely. Again, the person I spoke to for the second episode also hasn't played Runeterra because Riot letting his account play Runeterra or something, like just very complex stuff. But yeah, it was basically the same conversation. Me saying, "How can you not play Runeterra?" Because he's also like a very accomplished Hearthstone player. He's won like really big tournaments, international. You know, it's just very weird to me that he's not playing Runeterra because it's just like the perfect place for a player of his.
Huh. Okay. I mean, that's a really strong recommendation. You're convincing me here that I should check it out.
Yeah. I am so happy that it's a thing, because it's a great card game that has the promise of being balanced, the promise of a great esports scene, rather than the like Hearthstone is so RNG. There's so many known games in Hearthstone. We were talking about this again in the last episode. A crazy amount of RNG, and it's not fun. It's not fun when you lose a game where you had nothing you could have done differently to win it. It's just you never had it, your opponent always had it, and this is the way it went. And then the next game, you're the one that had it and your opponent didn't have it, and it just feels like it's not rewarding. You might as well be on a slot machine, you know, cranking it and getting the lemon. Oh my god, coins raining. Yeah, it's just It's not satisfying. Whereas in Runeterra, the amount of games where you finish on 1 HP or you lose with your opponent on 1 HP, it's so common, crazy. It
Huh.
just speaks of really good balance. And also, I can almost always trace a decision. Pardon. I can almost always trace a decision where if I did things differently, I would have won the game, or at least I wouldn't have lost there. I could have maybe played a few more turns, turned things around, which again, a great sign when it comes to card games. The ability,
Yeah, for sure.
to know you could have done things different rather than, oh well, this is the way the draw went. That's not fun. Um, yeah. Anything interesting about Eternal or other card games? What else do you play? Actually, do you play any other card games, or are you full on Eternal player?
I still play Magic sometimes. I'll get involved with. There's some people at work that do like a casual sealed league, and so I'll do that occasionally. But certainly not. I'm not in the competitive scene in Magic or anything like that.
You do something
And
math related?
I do computer programming.
Uh
Yeah. So there's a lot of nerds at my workplace.
no, there's something about good deck builders. It's always mathematicians. Like it's always people that come from fields that have to do with math. It's well, almost always. Like I mean, surely there's people that don't do lots of math and still build great decks, but typically it's always people that are really good at math. So this is now the moment to say if you're not good at math to disprove my theory.
um, I consider myself fairly good at math.
Cool. So Bart's
I
theory
don't
is
know
still
if I
correct.
consider myself a really accomplished deck builder, though. I always come up with these new brews and ideas, and uh, suddenly I have one that actually worked and has seen success on ladder for other players, and that's exciting. But one of my random ideas actually struck lightning. I don't know if that makes me a good deck builder.
Hey, if you did it once, you can do it again. No, I'm a believer.
Well, hopefully so. Hopefully so.
Yeah, well,
I will say it is pretty cool to see so many players playing the deck that I took to that tournament and enjoying it and having success with it. It's when you're building your own deck, it's pretty hard to tell sometimes how good the deck is because if you play 10 or 20 games and you do well with it, is the deck really that strong, or did you just hit a lucky streak of matchups or a lucky streak of draws? It's hard to tell, as opposed to when like hundreds of people start playing your deck and having success with it, then you're like, okay, this is actually a really strong deck apparently.
earlier when I said what other card games you play, I actually meant to say what other game card games. So pardon the talking typo.
Oh sure, no problem. I
Yeah.
do try to play some other games. Recently I've been playing some Batman Arkham Knight. So not the newest game out, but it's been having fun with it. I've played some Destiny 2, played recently Cuphead.
Well, that's
uh
those are awesome. Well, actually, I mean, I don't know about Arkham Knight. I've played one or two of the Batman games. They didn't seem particularly hard, but maybe I didn't get to the nightmare mode or something. I don't know if it has nightmare mode, shooting in the dark, but the other two games definitely very. I want to say try hardy, but try hardy is a it's negative. I don't want to sound negative. They're just very. I've tried both of them. Destiny 2, I can't play just because I'm terrible with shooters. Like
oh yeah.
I wish I was good at them. I genuinely wish I was good at them because I know so many people that love playing them and it would be super fun to play it with them. But I can't. I'm not good at freaking shooters. I don't have it. Cuphead I've also tried. I don't have the nerve system necessary.
Cuphead is really hard.
Yeah, it's crazy
There's
hard.
They have two types of levels. They have the boss levels, and then they have these run and gun levels. And at this point, I've just given up on the run and gun levels. They're too hard for me. I'm just trying to make my way through all the bosses.
Yeah, I can't even. Like, I played it one evening, and I was like, this game, I am not the target audience for this. Someone else. Someone that enjoys, pain.
Yeah.
Oh, crazy game. We used to have a game like this in high school. I want to be the guy Gaiden. And the game would, like, literally, it was a platformer that would try to kill you at every fifth frame. So,
Oh man.
in, like, the most unexpected way, like, you're just walking and you would have to pretty much die in each possible way to learn where it happens and how it happens, so you would know the silly move you have to do preemptively to dodge the piranha that comes out of the wall or something.
Yeah.
Crazy game for sure. So yeah, anything else
Yeah.
you would like to talk about before we move on to the closing statements?
Let's see. I guess just going back a little farther at games I've played in the last couple of years that I've really enjoyed. I'll give a shout out to Subnautica. That was a really great game.
Was it?
Horizon.
I can't get into it, man. Like, I've tried it
No?
twice, and also there's a VR mode, and I have a VR, so I should
Really?
yeah, I should really want to play it, but I can't. I tried the VR, and it was just super weird. And I've tried it once on PC, and I remember I didn't. I mean, no, I didn't try it on PC. I saw someone playing it on PC. Yes, I didn't personally try it, but it didn't seem that fun.
It did take a few hours for me before I really started getting it, I think, but I ended up really enjoying it. um, and some other games would be Horizon Zero Dawn. I really enjoyed that one. And Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which I'm actually still making my way through.
Horizon.
Horizon Zero Dawn is a PS4 exclusive, though, so.
Oh, you and your console. So sad. Well, I can't. I have a thing for consoles where I don't want to get one on principle.
Oh yeah.
It's very weird. I'm like, I can't neglect my PC. Like, I need to change parts on my PC. At this point, if I buy a console, it's, you know irresponsible. Then the PC part breaks, and what do I have? A console. And it looks silly. So maybe one day, but most likely not. Because I also expect for consoles and PC to start making. Hopefully, we can dream of a day like this where we're not divided based on
Yeah.
the hardware that we own. Because that's not fair. It's not fair to anyone. Why did they do this? Why did they do this, Camel? They do it because of money, greed,
Money.
human greed. That's what's more important than togetherness, Out there, those evil corporate. Now a Bardrand podcast. Oh man, well, dang it, so much fun. I wanna figure out other things to poke your mind about. Some existential questions. Okay, hold on. Do I have some existential questions for you? How did you sleep?
Okay.
What do you think about that question? How did you sleep? Why do people ask each other, how did you sleep? How would you know how you slept? You were asleep. Like, no, honestly, like, you need to be in third person to know how you slept. This is such a weird question. I don't understand it.
That's a good point. I never thought of it that way. Whenever I hear that question, I always think of like, how long did I sleep?
Is that the measurement of whether it was good or not? The length?
Um, well, I'm not sure. I think it has something to do with it. If you don't sleep long enough, you're tired. But yeah,
Sometimes
that's
if
an
you
interesting
oversleep,
question.
if you oversleep, you're still tired. It's just, I don't know, man. It seems like a very weird question. How do you feel? You know, why? What is this? How did you sleep? Anyway, I don't know what I was thinking today, and I've been telling people that I've been discussing it with folk. Like, hey, what do you think about this question? Why is this question still a thing? We're like, Bard, why are you talking about weird things like this? Get on with your life. So, um, and I feel like I could learn so much about Eternal, but I'm extremely spent and blanking out on questions and expecting you the work of podcasting yourself. You know, I'm just here to pretend like I'm a podcaster. But this has been a very fun, definitely. I, I would urge
Yeah, I'll have
everyone
to
get a podcast.
I'll
You
check
should
out
get a
your other
podcast.
episodes too. This has been fun. Thanks for inviting me on.
Yeah, it's been freaking great. We can definitely get another episode once I'm, uh, you know, it's not like the thing is I genuinely don't want to be prepared. Like I could have prepared. We could have had real questions written down, but you know, where's the authenticity in that? Why? But the problem with not having that is because I don't know how far yet I can probe people about their personal thing. You know, I don't know if I
Oh
should
yeah.
start everything with, "Hey, where are you from and what do you do?" and you know all of these because those are weird. And like usually guests at podcasts are famous people that you know people know and they know those things about them. Whereas in here, we sort of need to do introduction stuff like that. Whoa, you want to talk about politics?
Politics?
Yeah. How do you feel about the
uh
2020 elections? Who's your favorite? If you don't mind me asking, of course, at any point you can say
yeah,
"fuck you, word."
I don't even have a favorite. I didn't have a favorite last election cycle either. I didn't vote for either of the two leading candidates, but
Who did you vote
I
for? If you don't mind
there
me
was a
asking.
third party. I think it was Garrett. Geez, I'm forgetting his name now. This is like the Libertarian Party candidate. I'm like, I'll just vote for that guy. I don't like any of the other two.
So
So
you're going with the less popular vote. Is that your thing?
yeah, pretty much. Okay, you know what I would like to see in politics, if we want to go off on a tangent.
Oh, I totally love tangent. Let's go off on a tangent.
What I would like to see in politics is a more widespread adoption of rank choice voting, where instead of just voting for your one favorite candidate, you get to rank the different candidates and say, I prefer this candidate first, and this candidate second, and this candidate third, and so on. And then if your first choice doesn't have enough votes when they're tallying the votes, then they eliminate that candidate and then they go with your second choice, and your second choice gets your vote. And I like that system because it allows you to just vote for whoever you want, and you don't have to worry about, well, there's this candidate that I really don't like, and the only way to beat them is to vote for this other major party candidate, even though I don't like them either. Instead, you can rank your actual first choice and then, put this other candidate as your second or third choice, or whatever you want. And I think that would really help alleviate what we've gotten into here in the States of, we have this like two-party system where they're both on opposite extremes, and when the parties are selecting their own candidates, it seems like they need to select more radical candidates to appeal to that portion of their base. um, and then we don't end up with any like moderate candidates who are willing to meet in the middle and compromise. So, ranked choice voting, that's my little soapbox as far as politics goes.
This is like the most rational ever expected. I'm very happy with it. That was genuinely a great suggestion. I like wow, Why is no one proposing this? This is surely not a new idea, right?
No, I've heard it on podcasts and stuff, and there are places that have already adopted it. Ireland actually uses this in their voting system, so it has been done, and there are certain like cities in the United States that are doing it for city elections, and I think there's even a state that has started doing it as well. So
Oh
I'd
wow.
like to see it more widespread.
Okay, well, what do you think about Tulsi Gabbard? And here's why I'm asking: if you look at her name, what do you see?
I'm gonna have to look this up. Tulsi Gabbard.
Yes.
I actually really haven't
Do you know her? You've never heard of her?
I haven't heard of her, no.
Well, she's like one of the candidates, and Hillary really went after her. She said she's a Russian asset when the lady is a war veteran that's been sent overseas twice. She's
Oh
a
wow.
congresswoman from Hawaii, and she just goes ahead and she's like, "Oh, you're a Russian asset." Like, you can't say that about it. Come on, what are you doing? Anyway,
Yeah, this people just throw out so many allegations and stuff, and I guess Trump is probably the worst at that. He'll just like throw out whatever he wants to say.
so I'm a huge Tulsi Gabbard supporter for one main reason, and you can see the reason in her name. Can you say what the
Oh,
reason is?
oh, just because it has Bard in the name.
Yes, it ends with Bard.
Brilliant.
I know. No, I'm just kidding. I think she's a very cool person to. I saw her on Joe Rogan's podcast. I'm a huge Joe Rogan fan, to a fault where Theo would criticize me. Oh, how you like Joe Rogan too much, Bard. But yeah, I'm guilty of. I find genuine discourse very interesting. I've worked in television, in two different televisions and in newspapers, and I've seen enough fake interaction between where everything is scripted, and people know exactly what they're gonna say and stuff like that.
Yeah, I also like just genuine discourse between people. There's so much of just people like making odd ad hominem attacks and not really
Ooh,
listening to
you're the first person
arguments
that's
and stuff.
used this in forever in a conversation with me. I've explained it to two or three people, and each one of them makes fun of me. I'm like, why are you like? I say it, and they're like, what are you saying, Bart? And I'm like, dude, ad hominem. It means attacking someone's character to try and like bring down their argument as if you're discrediting it somehow because you said someone is fat. They're like, Bart, this
Yeah.
is. Well, why are you using your fancy words here? I'm like, this is not fancy. This is. It's just crazy. I'm so happy that now I have this recorded, and then I can show it to people and be like, look, other people also use this phrase. So please, yeah, it's
Well, yeah, you're welcome.
you've made me so happy. You've made me so happy. Well, this is a great ending to the podcast. We've got over an hour. I'm very sorry to keep you over the timing that we had arranged, but this has been great,
Oh, no problem.
and I would really love to have you again, man. In
Yeah,
the
I really
future.
enjoyed it.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, everyone, and Camel. Thanks again, dude. See you around, and good luck in the next tournament that you go to.
Well, thanks very much. Good luck to you too.
Thanks, dude. Bye.
Bye.
Have a great one.
Yeah, you too.